to thank everybody for coming out tonight. This is fantastic. This is the first live event that we've had here, unfortunately, since October, obviously because of the pandemic. In October, Orin, Ruth, and I had a poetry reading. It was a pretty fun evening. So we're very glad that you were all able to join us this evening. It's wonderful to have faces in the room here. Before we start, I have just a few things to say. If you do need a bathroom, there's one up here at the head of the stairs. You just go through this door. It's immediately on the left. Second, very important, I want to thank Celeste and Dennis for filming our reading this evening. Celeste is going to be featuring this event as part of her promotional efforts as Utica City Councilwoman. She's trying to highlight uptown Utica's cultural hotspots. So thank you for doing that for us, Celeste. And thank you, Dennis. Just a few other quick things. The other side is a community art space. As you can see, we have a show up here, Atmospheric Landscapes, paintings by Angela Markin. We usually have a rolling series of shows every month, except during the summer. But we have a lot of other programming that, as I said, has been curtailed. And we have no paid staff here at all. We depend on our friends for support. So if after the show tonight, there's a black jug on that table by the door, if you could drop $5 in just to help us out. It just keeps the lights on, helps with our programming.
20, 50,
or 100. Leave us in your will, whatever. If you want to sell a property, we'll be very glad to take that. We are poets, so we do also accept things signed in blood. We also have, most of us have books for sale, except Ruth and I. We don't have books, but if you want
long overdue.
But if you want more of our poetry, you could take us to dinner. Tom has books there, Cindy has books there, Orin's fine book is there, and Adam has his book as well. Tom and Orin's came out right as the pandemic, the pandemic was just starting, and Tom's came out in October, so they really haven't had a chance to present it to folks. So they're wonderful books, all four of them. And with that, that's the end of the preliminaries here, so I want to say thank you again for coming to the Rag and Bone Shop Poetry Theater's presentation of The Delicate Thing Which Lasts. The title for tonight's event comes from a poem by John Balaban. He's a wonderful American poet that we think deserves a lot more attention than he gets. He's actually been kind enough to give us a couple of poems to publish in our local journal that we publish from the other side called Doubly Mad. So I'm going to start tonight by reading his poem from which our title is taken, and then we're going to go right into our own work with Orin. So this poem is called Poetry Reading at the Black Sea, and just as a little background information, he starts with a quote from the Roman poet Ovid, who lived during the time of Augustus Caesar. And Ovid wrote love poems, which Augustus thought were lewd. So he exiled him to Romania, or what's today Romania. And so Ovid spent the rest of his life complaining in his poetry about all of the barbarians, and I'm alone here, and I want to come back to Rome. Can I please come back? And the emperor said no. So that's the background of this poem. And Balaban starts with a quote from Ovid. It says, "Often gates shut safe inside the walls, we gathered arrows fallen in the streets. A breeze riffles in from the beach, stirring poplar catkins, woolly stuff, drifting the town in flurries, searching the air like syllables of poetry, while we perch on the stones of this Roman bath, listening to poetry, the delicate thing which lasts. Here at Empire's edge, boys, silly with love, chatted idly by the pools. Merchants trading amphorae of oil and Lydian dye, cursed thin prophets, cruel seas, lost ships. Now seagulls flap and squawk on broken walls, scurfed with weeds and the royal poppy. Greek and Roman, Getae, Thracian, Bulgar, Slavs, Avars, Goths, Celts, Tartars, Huns, Arabs, Turks, Russians, and now the U.S. Navy. Not far from here, one frigid winter in Thomas, an aging Ovid exiled by Augustus, donned a helmet to defend the ramparts, as Thracian horsemen circled the frozen marsh, their long hair tinkling with chinks of ice, shooting poisoned arrows into the walled city, killing the boy who attended the old poet. The boy he paid to massage his skin there, in the last place, among barbarians 2,000 years ago. And now, acacia's fragrance our evening, as poplar fluff floats over imperial rubble. Only poetry lasts.
Hi, good evening. I kind of, over the course of, we've been working on this for a while, and I've sort of almost completely changed what I planned on doing tonight, so a lot of this stuff is going to be a little fresh, but this one isn't. This one I planned on doing. During Advent and Lent, a trio that read at the last reading, Ruth and Will and I, write a poem a day. I do it almost all the time, but we all do it during Advent and Lent, and we send the poems to each other each day. And it's sort of a, instead of giving up something for Lent, I take something up. It's a process I like. Anyhow, in doing that, usually what I do is I follow what William Stafford did, which was he said, you get up early before everybody else, and the first thing, there'll be a golden thread that dangles before you. It's actually a line from Blake about the golden string, and you follow it. And if you do one a day, if say over Lent with 42 days or so of poems, if you get 3 good ones, you're lucky. That's a good batting average for poetry. So these are a couple that are still in the running. I don't know if anything is really going to come out of it, but this is the new one, and it's about the pandemic, and it seemed like a good place to start. It helps if you're familiar with Roman Catholicism a little bit and the whole thing of confession, the sacrament of healing. And this is in the form of a confession. It's called My Pandemic Confession. My pandemic disposition has been to overindulge in various elixirs, whose consequence nourished this ravenous depression. Father, please hear my confession. Padre, I can't hear a fucking thing people mumble from behind these masks. And half the time I haven't a clue to whom I'm listening and nodding. For instance, just yesterday, I stopped in at our cafe on some now forgotten errand, where I was waylaid by 2 masked bandits who said they'd read and admired my rap sheet and wanted to purchase another copy inscribed to Tom. To Tom who, I had to ask. You get the picture pretty fast. Then I ran into another friend, Steve, a local politician with whom, about our dire condition, I traded some muffled talks trash. Steve confessed he could no longer bear to watch the news. Instead, he streamed old episodes of MASH. Later, departing, after signing the book warmly, I waved goodbye to Steve, who waved back and from behind his mask shouted out, "Orin, pizza face." I didn't get the jibe. Maybe something about my northern safety N95 made my face look like a pizza. As I stepped outside, I suddenly realized Steve had shouted, "Orin, keep the faith," not pizza face. So Faccia Pizza stepped back inside and thumbs up. So Faccia Pizza stepped back inside to thumbs up holler, "Steve, keep the faith." Father, as a good act of contrition, I now offer this admission. Love is in need of love today. Don't delay, send yours in right away for suffering succotash. There must be some better way for this old Tom Pussycat to get the soul sustenance he needs to ease his depression. Gonna do one from my book, the one I referred to in that rap sheet, which came out last year. This is one of the older poems in it, and It's about my father, as many poems are. I was hoping my brother Frank would be here tonight. My sister Nita is. She knows this routine pretty well. It's called Sunday Drive. My old man knew squat about cars. The hood might as well have been a gateway to another dimension where he had never traveled. He would drive for days with the oil light flickering, oblivious to the engine's impending distress. Had he tried to add a quart of 30 weight, it would most likely have ended up in the radiator. But every Sunday, for as long as anyone remembers, he would take whatever wreck that resided in his driveway, 49 Plymouth, 54 Dodge, 64 Valiant, out for an endless, aimless Sunday spin. Bud would pull a passel of kids away from the television, pack them in with no thought for provisions, and flutter off a denobly chomping butterfly following the day's unique whimsy. In those pre-sprawl, pre-embargo days of innocence before malls and subdivisions metastasized across the land and gas soared to $3 a gallon, we had what was pound for pound one of the loveliest landscapes on earth. Our valley would pass before his painterly eye a sweeping succession of landscapes, patchwork hill Cezannes, riverbend Pizarros, Van Gogh in the village, Monet in the hay whizzing by through the windscreen's wandering frame. Those rides were a large part of what made this land my home. Imprinting rolling pasture and woodlot, Holstein-dotted hills, humpback moraines, shale-shelved brooks, and tree-lined lazy mohawk upon my open heart. An Ektachrome slideshow from a childhood spent riding shotgun or tail gunner, July heat shimmers rising from the road ahead, two-lane blacktop soundtrack tires humming in fresh tar, moving water mirage spilling across the asphalt, and us singing the old man's songs. Don't you listen to him, Dan, he's a devil, not a man, and he spreads the burning sand with water. Cool, clear water. Apologize for singing. Another quickie from the pandemic, and this is the first part of this long title. I write very long titles. Is from Leadbelly, and the poem is on the theme of normal. I kind of believe that the pandemic came as a gift to wake us up, and that the last thing that we need to do is to return to our old normal. And this poem's about that in a way. It's called, "What did you bring me, dear mother? Keep me from the gallows pole." A dissertation on the perils of normal. I ain't cruising for nothing named normal. You know, that canned spam from Hormel? Like Igor, I've acquired an abnormal brain. We can't plant anything here anyway until this swamp gets drained. I ain't looking to book a seat on the first vaccine passport, unmasked transoceanic flight. Let the Tasmanian devils have New South Wales. Hell, let them take all of Australia. I'll plant my red and black banner in the word wilderness of wannabe one land of mutual aid, forgiveness, and love. We can dance out here on this muddy Mohawk muckland black bottom with Jelly Roll Morton stomping and Ma Rainey singing and swinging like a turtle dove. Lone crows who cruise the naked maples know subterranean pools of sorrow, and their coarse cries speak well of grief. While here in the bare bold 100-watt glow of our well-lit insanity, we smiley face wallow in disbelief in any power greater than the almighty dollar. Normal is a straight razor poised at the throat of the planet. Normal is a narrow stairway to the trapdoor platform on the towering gallows of whiteness. Whiteness is a death wish, laundering and counting its filthy lucre. But where we are going, money won't matter, because Santa brought us all an apocalypse for Christmas. The key to tomorrow is in how we unwrap it. I'm going to cede 5 minutes of my time, 2 minutes of my time, to the gentleman from Minnesota. I'm talking about Robert Bly, who was a great mentor to me and great influence. I've been to at least 5 workshops with him. And this is a book I just picked up recently. It's a little chapbook that Tommy DiPiola did the illustrations for. It was quite a wonder. I was amazed to find it. And this is a poem from that called Seeing Creely for the First Time. It's about the poet Robert Creely. Excuse me. Poetry shit makes you thirsty. Robert Bly. Seeing Creely for the first time. Creely sits on a chair, pulling up his knees to laugh like a boy, looking very insecure, unsure like a boy at school with pants too short. He looks astoundingly like a crow. It is unbelievable. Even his hair is somehow crow hair, shining black falling over his head that is full of determination to pester owls if he sees any. And the beak is a crow beak, and the sideways looks he gives, the head shoved slightly to the side by the bad eye, finishes it. I suppose his language is crow language. No long open vowels. Like the owl, no howls like the wolf, but instead short, faintly hollow, harsh sounds that all together make something genuine. Crow speech, coming up from every feather, every source of that crow body and crow life. The crows take very good care of their children and are the most intelligent of birds, wary of human company, though when 2 or 3 fly over the countryside together, they look almost happy. Thank you.
You want to have trouble with this? Good evening, hello. Thank you all for coming. I hope I have this on. Good enough. I'm going to read a few poems from a series. I've been going through something that we politely call the aging process these days. And I needed, in my poems, I found a voice, a character or a persona who was middle-aged, edging on something we don't want to talk about. No, I'm just... so I came up with a woman named Mrs. Cloud. And she was actually a friend of mine. And when my friend told me years ago that they had this friend of the family named Mrs. Cloud, I was just it just filled my imagination for some reason, inspired me. I felt like a cloud. So these are 3 or 4 poems from that series. The first one is called Mrs. Cloud Visits the Cemetery with Her Last Remaining Aunt. She doesn't believe anybody's here. Nobody's here, she says to the angel, overlooking great Aunt Alice's grave. Look at her poor fingers, they're broken. It's vandals. They come here at night. I search the outstretched hand that held a lily for Alice and suggest corrosion. Oops, says Margaret, I'm standing on your mother. They are all gone now. Mother, father, Henry, Tom, Nelson, Polly, Betts. Their certainty, the highballs and cigarettes, the high heels and manners, the last of the 20th century. Unlike Margaret, I half believe they are under the stones bearing their names. The real estate of death mattered to them, and they came to this neighborhood often to talk with the dead and pick out their houses. How old are you? Margaret wants to know on the way back. When I answer, she sighs, oh, you're just a child. And we go back to staring at the October road, flying with yellow and brown leaves. Mrs. Cloud and the Nest. Last spring, the robins built their nest between the arms of 2 wicker chairs I left side by side on the porch all winter. And it was, by their standards, as sturdy as my old bungalow is to me. Twigs and grasses threaded and intertwined with mud and wicker, like clabbered, like nails. I watched the lady settle in for her wait as rain and ice swept the porch in April's bitter gasps, and yield her azure eggs and sit with that inhuman look, unpretending, so deeply into the present it can't be understood. Day after day, I came back to the window, to her, until cracks appeared in the shells and her 5 babies lay naked, until their down turned to feathers, and some messenger from the gods brought them, one by one, to the edge of the nest, where they flew like crazy, to the porch railing, the trees. And the whole time, I was thinking about the months and years it has taken me just to let go of a few offenses. I'm assuming a lot of you have been in book groups, so this is Mrs. Cloud in a book group. I just got kind of fed up with my book group. So Mrs. Cloud and the book group. As we join the circle, we are hesitant. We feel stupid. What did it mean? Chapter 3, for instance, or even the title. We say to ourselves, we should have gone to graduate school. Do we dare mention our identification with the killer? The unhappy children? Better rethink. Why did we join in the first place? We hadn't read a serious book in years. In my living room one evening, we made an ambitious list. No murder mysteries, no romances or celebrated lives. When the books arrived from Amazon, they were thick and the words compound. Month after month, they sat solidly on our bedside tables like grandparents. How far, they asked, did we really want to pursue interpretations of crime, terrors of childhood, and forego meanings and happy endings? So we bicker over descriptions and plots. Is the book lacking, or is it real life? Mrs. M insists on how much she loves or hates such and such a character, as if the phantom sat among us, turning the pages tenderly with the same clean white hands, writing notes in the margins like symbol of death, Shakespeare. This is a little one. This is called Mrs. Cloud and the Heavens. This is about the longing for escape, which we all have periodically. Mrs. Cloud and the Heavens. In the pale sky, early this morning, a wash of rose. I thought again of escape, but also of beauty, where I am standing, staring at the heavens, on the corner of Beverly Place and Tarbell. A firm hold on Milo's leash as he sinks his nose into the snow. Day after day, the same choice. Fly, gather a few things, money, socks, and drive away, or think. And the moment I think, I turn back to love. Messy, boring, demanding, stupid old love.
Hello, everybody. So I'm told that my stuff is strange. Well, dreamlike and inventive, I think, is what my friends say. But what they really mean is, we're worried about you. So I want to ease their minds by starting off with a poem called The Ordinary. The moment for which there is no name passed. I had erased all I wanted to, maybe more than I needed to. The sunlight slanting through the trees made no promises, while around the feeder, small gray birds huddled like Dickens' orphans. The blue sky stretched tight as a drum above me. I could feel the medicine taking effect. My heartbeat slowed. The ordinary descended. Ordinary dew on ordinary grass. Ordinary gutters. Ordinary houses on ordinary streets. Ordinary dogs barking. Ordinary children shouting. Everything seemed so easily named. How could anyone bear it? The ordinary is allegorical too, said the angel, crouched in the briars. The gray birds lifted as one and began to circle his head. Shh, they said, shh. This next poem is in 3 parts. It's called The Lie. I don't think there's too much you need to know ahead of time. I do refer to Poetry Magazine, a rather popular poetry journal that Will and I often
Bash.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm waiting.
So I think my attitude toward it will probably come out here. The Lie. 1. What was the lie? Who told it? Did I really think it was wrong? Did it wash over us like air through a car window? Did it fall around us like the Perseid meteor shower? How many were affected by it? How many never caught on? And all the lies within the lie, like Russian eggs, did we take them into account? Or were we too absorbed in metonymic sidestepping and what they called verbal sashaying back in those Halicon days? That was before I learned to cure my stammer by parsing speech into musical phrases. Side effects include involuntary carnival barking and pleated dreams. Does my speaking of the lie make you uncomfortable? Would you rather I spoke of the truth, as if it too did not have its palimpsests? Who are you talking to? Shouts Uncle Gestalt. He's been sniffing the pages of the latest poetry magazine and seems irritated. Take your ideal readers and get out here. He shakes a knobby fist and scowls apropos of nothing, or maybe it's the sight of us sprawled naked on the patio furniture. I swirl my gin and tonic. They're implied readers, if you must know, I say. I don't care. I can feel their breath on my neck. No, you can't. That's a lie, too, I tell him. You and your lie. He rises from his chair and approaches us, breathing black smoke. Don't you know that your so-called lie doesn't even exist, and that in itself is the lie? He begins to swat us with his copy of poetry, an issue devoted to formal metrical verse written by hemophiliacs. One swing cracks me good across the brow. Ouch, that hurts. That's the idea, he says. 2. Is it possible to lie without language? And with language, is it possible not to? Step right up, Do you believe in the lie of the rose, the lie of starlight reflected in a pond, the lie of white birds upon a quaking bough? Do you believe the lie of capital? Did it cool your brow like a lover's kiss? And now, do you believe that every lie is a bridge and every truth a chasm? Do you believe William Butler Yeats ever realized that Maud Gonne was a lie he told himself repeatedly, as I have come to realize regarding you? Are we the lies we choose to accept? That's a nice hat, by the way. I wish all of my inscribed readers wore hats like yours. Would you like some galumki? Aunt Prima Facie made it from scratch. You all look so hungry, she says. Why do your readers look so hungry? What have you been telling them? Eat, eat. Aunt Prima Facie, did you know that the Russians have no word for blue? Yet we consider it a primary color. How do you explain that? Stop your nonsense. Look at them. Their ribs are showing. Eat, eat. I believe we are nothing's way of lying to itself. 3. Is everything we say or write a mirage? Is the truth what's left after all the lies have been told? From the next room, Uncle Gestalt shouts, "You will never know what it's like to bleed out over a poem." I have a mouthful of galumki and do not answer. My model readers, however, begin to speak. The lie of the lighthouse beam, the lie of the stammering prophet, the lie of the bell tower smothered in ivy, and of the bell ringer waiting for a word, the lie of the cypress tree silvered by moonlight, the lie of the author, the lie of the wine stain on white silk, the lie of a lover beckoning from the terrace, the lie of the broken compass and the mystical honeycomb and the lute's broken string. "Stop it," shouts Uncle Gestalt from the next room. "What do any of you know? Imagine living with the knowledge that the next wound, even the slightest, could be fatal, a paper cut even. That's the kind of thing to make a real poet out of you." "Now, dear, leave them alone," says Aunt Prima Facie. "Look at them. Is it any wonder they believe in lies? Can't you see that they're starving?" Thank you. I'll read one little quickie here. This is actually kind of a prose poem, I guess. It's called "Body Surfing with Cotton Mather." I take it you all know who Cotton Mather is. "This wave shall buoy me up like the gracious hand of God," he shouts, and then he's carried forward on an avalanche of foam, his arms, white as the inside of an oyster shell, thrust out stiffly before him. Whee! I watch from my beach blanket. The transistor radio is playing "Rock Your Baby" by George McCrae. A few gulls trace circles in the sky. "You should probably come in and put on some sunscreen," I shout. "You know how easily you burn." "Just one more," he says, and then, his wet wig plastered to his shoulders, he turns his back and begins wading toward yet another wall of dark water rising before him like a question mark out of the sea.
I don't have an introduction for this first one, but I think it speaks for itself. Orin spoke of our Lenten poetry. Mostly I'm going to read from that, but this is a little pre-Lent poem, and it's in 3 parts. It's called The Unraveling. Part 1. Images arrest. Wild mobs breach the Capitol, scaling walls, breaking windows, waving old flags. People painted, carrying weapons. Camouflage meant for woods and battlefields, not city streets or halls of lawmaking. The man, half naked, clad in fur, horned hat on crazy head. Horrified, we watch and watch, condemn and damn. Huddlesome, in fear of what we've created. Like Victor Frankenstein, we seek in order to destroy, never once pausing to consider the cause, not caring that the beast, uncared for, ceased to care, wanting it only and forever gone. The images haunt. How could this, we wonder, happen here, land of the free, home of the brave? A country born of revolution for the rights of man. When nearly 250 years ago, some insurrectionists dressed in paint and feathers, carrying hatchets and swords, frustrated, angry, ignored by a government taxing but not representing them, boarded that ship in Boston Harbor, ransacked and destroyed its innocent tea. Images live, alive in every school kid's textbook, teaching courage, patriotism, honor, and verve. Part 2. How could any of it happen here? Here, where we all have cars and cell phones, and some of us always have enough to eat. Electronics of every sort. What sort of plague dares seep through our pixels to infect? What scourge shackles and stymies leaves us quivering behind masks, unable to help or hug one another? Last night, I watched a friend sob, double masked, alone in a classroom, on my laptop on my living room floor. Someone else's mother in a new nursing home falls 7 times unattended. A childhood pal in the hospital for surgery reports there is no hot water. Kids sent back to schools we know are not yet safe because too many of the places where they would otherwise be are less safe still. We've washed our groceries, sterilized our mail, not knowing what, whom to believe, not knowing if to believe, when belief is the only way to be saved. A friend writes a poem every morning to lay on the altar of his heart. This is the only good. My daughter's AIDS daughter tested positive for the virus. How many degrees of separation make my daughter's sore throat suspicious? Vaccines dangle like lifeboats on the Titanic. Steinbeck diagnosed it a century ago. This country's disease. We treat symptoms. Results, not causes. Always and only results, not causes. Still, we sit stunned and silent when the center which cannot does not hold. Part 3. Do you wear a wool sweater? Examine its construction. Knitting builds stitch on stitch. Break one and the whole garment comes apart. Tatters scatter. You can pick up a drop stitch if you take the time to find it, have the skill to understand the pattern and repair. Otherwise, you have to untangle the entire creation, roll the yarn into a brand new ball, begin again. Thank you. Since September, I have started every day at 5:45, including tomorrow, so if I fall asleep before we're done, you'll know why, with my 5-year-old granddaughter. And this one is from Lent, and it features the days that we spend together. It's called, I'm so envious of Orin's titles. I keep telling him, you could write a book of just titles. This one's titled February 20th, Day 4. Yesterday, my granddaughter, 5 years old, pointed a pale pink index finger and shot the rabbit bounding across our living room woods. We needed it for food. She, the dolls, and I, stranded as we were in the sheep fort under the coffee table in the perpetual storm. We are forever losing power, must wend our ways with flashlights in the dark. But our cell phone, no matter how I try to force a wilderness truth on our play, always works because I'm told it's magic. But back to the bunny. A raggedy brown stuffed one sleeps in a cardboard box beside our makeshift camp, on loan from the unicorn comforter on my granddaughter's bed, where it belongs, cuddled there in tiny arms since both were born or bought. She did not shoot this rabbit, no. But she aimed that finger as if she'd ever seen a gun and sent an imaginary bullet humming into the heart and soul of some other invisibly real. She did it for food, it's true. She did not do it for fun. Yet our story's survival, fraught with daily peril and acted in between breakfast and dog walk, must provide entertainment of a sort. Life lesson, too. You do what you have to do to feed a family, stay alive. She aimed the finger without remorse. I held my breath to see if she could shoot her bedtime buddy's brother. A tiny bang. The deed was done. The matter-of-fact way she retrieved the carcass. Save the fur, I advised, trapped as we were on that mountaintop during this February that never stopped snowing. She dumped the bunny's body in the pot, served up original sin without a seeming thought, steaming in our bowls despite my cautionary woes. Everything has changed now. You know that, don't you? If she did, it didn't show. We sipped our stew, made the dollies, though they fussed, eat of it too. You then.
Adam on the second half.
We really don't know what we're doing, so if it seems like we're confused, it's because we're poets.
And we are. I got some friends that I work with from the hospital here tonight, so I'm going to start with a poem. I had to work on the night shift for a while. I usually work on the day shift, and I didn't enjoy that experience too well. But so this is called the Night Shift Blues. There are so many sounds at 1 a.m. No wonder people believe in ghosts. This old building growls and snores. Is that water gurgling in a pipe or a child giggling? Why are so many ghosts children? It's hard for me to keep my eyes open. I like the daytime, but most of the earth's creatures love the night. They need its shelter. It makes the outside world an extension of the underground, deep, earthy darkness. Cool, damp. And stars are just the white roots of grass. Time of 24-hour laundromats. Time of the 2 a.m. pizza slice. Time of owls and musicians. I can stay awake. It's still early yet. Miles, right after he plays the last note of the morning, takes a sip of something strong and watches the house empty out. Behind the bar, they're washing glasses. He clears his trumpet spit valves. Its brass is still warm with his breath. So, Orin and Ruth have been talking about our, writing back and forth, and I'm writing to Cindy and Tom, and now Adam's back. I have a lot of friends to discuss poetry with, but I live with my editor, Colleen, and so I always review things with her, and she gives me her feedback. But I also, she really inspires a lot of my poetry. I write a lot of it for her. So these next two are for her. They take place up at Pixley Falls. And if you didn't know this, our whole area at one time was an ocean floor, and it was actually in the southern hemisphere millions of years ago. And if you go up to Pixley Falls, you'll find fossils. So I didn't know there were fossils in that creek bed, but Colleen found them. Flat, brittle stones with the signature of mollusks. The forest hillside used to be an ocean floor. We climbed higher looking for others, and I remembered that 25 miles away at Trenton Falls, the limestone is full of trilobites. Junk drawer earth. If you dig just a little bit, you learn how many experiments life has made with spirals, compound eyes, and bones. I scrambled, bent over, flipping rocks like pancakes, tapping, dropping them. Must have looked like a prospector who'd lost his mind searching for gold. What I found was shale and sedimentary rock, not the dinosaur tooth I wanted, or outline of an ancient fish. Meanwhile, Colleen found more specimens. She showed me one hallmarked by a kind of seaweed that made the stone look like a Sumerian tablet. Another, the size of an ostrich egg, was full of clams. Letting the archaeologist work, I stepped back into the present, my feet hidden under the early ferns. Around me, the trees were just starting to ignite their new leaves. Soft, light green buds shaped like candle flames. A black and white karyotype of birch bark lay in the mud. 2 million years from now, the rock this will become may break open in a flood, but who will read its one poem? The tree that wrote it stood over me, writing a dozen more. And I've been channeling, I'm terrible with titles too. I usually do like The Wound, the Star, something like that. So I've been trying to do more like Orin, but now I've gone to the point where I need to unpack my title. So the title of this one is Love Like Gravity is a Weak Force, but like gravity operates across the greatest distances. So, in physics there are 4 forces. There's the strong force, the weak force. I don't think physicists are good at titling things either. Electromagnetic force, and gravity. The strong and weak forces only operate across the span of an atom. Electricity is pretty good, but thank you. And but gravity obviously holds this planet together, kind of. So actually, love is pretty strong. This again is at Pixley Falls. We both see things the other cannot see. Sitting on a log together, watching water fall from a cliffside, watching the waves form a carousel, I asked, "Do you see the horses?" "What horses?" "There, the ones bobbing up and down, spinning in circles midstream." You looked to where I pointed and said, "I think I see." A few minutes passed. Then you stood suddenly. It seemed sudden to me. Though it would have been clear to anyone, you had a plan in mind. Walking carefully along the creek bed, you began to gather stones. I followed you with my eyes, trying to interpret the sign language of your movements, how you handled each rock, turning it in your palms, setting some back down, holding on to others. Wanting to ask, "What are you thinking?" but not wanting to interrupt, I tallied guesses and saw over your shoulder a reed-covered spit of land that cleft the stream in two. A young man with his son had crossed the water in a shallow place. They also were searching the ground. The father was showing his boy how to build a cairn, helping him fit together stones. I watched him take his child's hand in his, while the boy held a rock. Together they balanced each tier of their monument with the gentleness one saves for living things. Others had done the same. The shoreline of the creek had been turned into a small sakkara of miniature step pyramids and I thought you were going to make your own, though I wondered why you would start with the pinnacle rather than the base. But I was wrong. Once you collected a few pebbles, you brought them back, each glistening still with water, and began to place them into grooves where the log had rotted. Each seemed to fit exactly, rough gems in a wooden setting. Only you could see where they belonged. Afraid I was in your way, I moved down the log to give you more room. I felt, or thought I felt, your thanks. I believe our skin is a synapse, thoughts cross unhindered. Sometimes. Then there are instants like that when I sense how deep the fault line dividing us is, and though I try to bridge it with words, or the simplicity of a kiss, when each kiss ends, we pull away again, and we're alone in each other's point of view. You looked at your jeweler's work and changed positions, examining the log from another side. Glancing at me, finding my eyes fixed on you, you smiled and said, "Why don't you look for one?"
Good evening, everyone. We have a couple pieces here for this segment. One was a really short poem. It's pretty concise. A little too concise, made me nervous. So I decided to write a definition of it, which got all sorts of abstract and convoluted. But I feel better there. And trying to figure out what it meant, I only determined that it meant I spent far too much time in isolation this last year. Observing soberly that the ever-varied, spontaneous folding, unfolding of existence and creation is so completely unpredictable that it encourages taking a stance of being an unpredictable, ever-varied, spontaneous folding, unfolding of existence and creation, just to withstand it. To notice or perceive something and register it as being significant in a serious and solemn manner, with moderation or self-restraint, temperately referring to a specific thing previously mentioned, that's used to point forward to a following qualifying or defining clause or phrase, at all times incorporating a number of different types or elements, showing variation or variety, performed or occurring as a result of sudden inner impulse or inclination or external stimulus, that's able to be bent or arranged over itself so that one part of itself covers another, to join words, to indicate that they have combined meaning, and or a missing element, expressing the implied relationship between a part and a whole, fact or state of living or having objective reality, to connect words as the action or process of bringing these things into existence. The third person singular present of be is, to such a great extent, totally, utterly not able to be predicted, indicating a pause between parts, introducing a subordinate clause expressing a state of hypothesis, used to refer to a thing previously mentioned, gives support, confidence, or hope to someone in the action or process of making something. One single, any way in which someone stands towards something, expressing the relationship between a part and a whole. The nature or essence of a person, the form of the indefinite article, not able to be predicted at all times, ever incorporating a number of different types or elements, showing variation or variety, performed as a result of sudden inner impulse, or inclination, or external stimulus. It's able to be bent or rearranged over itself so that part of it covers another sequence of events to be revealed or disclosed, expressing the relationship between a part and a whole fact or state of living or having objective reality, used to connect words of the same part of speech in the action or process of bringing these things into existence, exactly, or almost exactly, at this or of that moment. Simply, only, no more than absolutely, in various phrases intending how something is related to something else, indicating the manner or attitude of the person doing something to remain valid or unaltered, to remain undamaged or unaffected, while referring to a fact or situation previously mentioned or happening, used in the normal subject or object position of the situation or circumstance of things in general. Thank you.
You know, it's, I just wanted to say, well, I'm not first in the second half, but I just wanted to say when I don't write out my introductions, and I forgot when I told this, Robert Bly when I read his poem. What I wanted to include there was the fact that I found out recently there wasn't anything, he's very prolific and nothing new was showing up. One book came out, but it was a collection put together of earlier work. And I found out that he's got a very serious case of Alzheimer's. He's in his 90s now, so the story I loved was that they showed him a video of himself reading, and he said, "I like that guy, he's really funny."
Adam, I think you're up again.
Oh, we're not going to take it?
We're not going to take it.
All right.
Right.
It's a theater, so I can just have my smoke break right here, right?
Oh, we could. Sorry. Well, we were going to go around twice in this round, so we did.
Sister once.
We don't know what we're doing, like I said. We might read 5 more times, we might walk out right now.
Alright. This is the last poem I wrote before leaving Hawaii very recently. I don't know if I can call it a sabbatical, if it was 8 years, but
8 years?
yeah. Oh, it's good to be home. It's good to see these faces, and I love reading with this crew. It's a big part of my life. The history of this town and this arts community has given me a lot, so it's a real honor to be back and sharing with everybody.
You've given a lot too.
Next one. Taking pause at the coast in a chair made of ocean, carving driftwood with a knife made of letters. These are all kind of short. The slow, unhurried day, absent of mind, winds towards remembrance and the facing of presence and past. The quiet ghosts linger, speaking only in forgotten tongues, silent films on the silver screens of memory. A past self asks unanswerable questions as the weight of the unknowable lay in inevitable layers of snow. The moss prepares to shed its green. A rolling stone pauses and considers sleep. The crow speaks impermanent truths. The blue jay bullies the finch at the feeder. The owl reveals a mystery that no questions will answer. Random text streaming. Random text streaming, caught in the filters of daydreaming throes, disjointed, unreferenced text flows, broken arrows, file sawtoothed anxieties. Several varieties of nonsensical jibber-jabber typing strike like lightning into fertile fields of cosmos, breathing, wreathing, spitting out suns at a rate alarming, disarming voices, expanding choices past the imprints of self, left. Burned deftly into signposts, wavering at the edge of now's distinction. Mind form in extinction, burned from seanced tables. The horses left the stables to consider anarchist leaflets in traction. The left and right breed a new faction of center. Prepare yourself to enter. Battles of unseen forces yield divorces and human interaction. like the traction of the hearse, while men think they'll cheat the ferryman's purse. Occasions of spirit in a sacred lodge, ancient songs and sweat and trance, gathering together saved messages from dead friends and prayers from my ancestors to dance. I hide within words at the beach, somewhere near the ends of earth. I watch the heavens jump between the spaces, a tattooed arm crushing sunset till the morning, waving at mortality with words flung from a rainbow jacket. Thank you.
I still wanted to stick to the thing that's twice. Just right. We were going to do twice. That's what I thought. Sure. Yeah, we're going to do like one. Yeah. Oh.
Nice. Feels like something very special.
It's like the watch, it's like
We
the
don't,
talking stuff.
right, we don't usually, we don't usually record these or anything, that way we can deny it later, and, so, where is the one? Yeah, I'm gonna do this one, I guess. No, I'm not. I'm gonna be bold here. I suffer from horrible insomnia, which destroys my life and makes me want to jump off the nearest high object. So, but sometimes when I'm lying awake at night and I can't sleep, I write poems, and I'm like, I don't want a poem right now. So this one's called "A Common Problem Among Certain Kinds of Overstimulated People." What good is a damned poem when what I need is sleep? I stumble out of the too warm bed for the 6th time, careful as I can be, not to wake Colleen or the cat, who has no trouble dozing off, and come with my head full of blather to the living room, hoping to lance it and let it drain. It's been 4 nights since I've slept well. The last 2 I've been more alert than during the day. I can only think of poets like myself who know what this insomnia is and how they wrote about it better than I do. And Shakespeare, whose birthday is and death day is tomorrow, it's a bad sign if you can't sleep. Stratagems disturb the hero's mind. Ripple out, reverberating through all of Scotland or Rome. A man's thoughts become the figments of lions. Owls brood in the form at noon. Is it a knife I see hovering in front of me, or a pen? Strike the king dead, William! Liberty, equality, fraternity! You see? No wonder I can't sleep. With all these regicides and revolutions, barricading the hallways, bearing torches into every one of my memories. Think instead of the cold, quiet moon. Think of those sleepless, drunken poets of Jang On who sat alone all night scribbling poems only to set them afloat on a stream like wilting flowers. The ink spots were the brown marks of decay. Poems are always about the end of things. Codas. What poem that has touched you, William, was jubilant, a beginning, a commencement, not a conclusion? At the moment, I can't think of a single one. But at night in Utica, there are few sounds other than train whistles which work into my mouth like fish hooks and mean only one thing. So is it leaving that keeps me awake? Maybe. I look up and see my uncle standing in the hallway of his house. He is dressed in his bathrobe. I am 10 years old again, unable to sleep in the unfamiliar bed. Downstairs, my mother and aunt are whispering things I wish I could hear. A few minutes ago, I crouched by the head of the stairwell, trying to listen, but my uncle's footsteps chased me back to bed. In the morning, he is going to take me fly fishing, and I know that once again, I won't catch a single fish. Now his hand is on the doorknob. He turns and says,
In this house, we lie down and look at the ceiling till we fall asleep.
Uncle Wes, I wish it was that easy.
The poet once wrote that we suffer insomnia not because we cannot fall asleep, but because we want to stay awake. He's the poet, by the way. In that case, is that the case with me? Who am I listening for? No, I want to sleep. I do. I deny my desire. But like St. Peter, I may deny my love 3 times tonight.
You don't have to answer you.
Yeah.
You'd think this would get easier, but I guess it doesn't. So I read Orin's thing that he sent out to everybody, and he said we were going to be funny, and I said, oh my God, I got to be funny. So I looked for something funny, and I do have something. I have 2 little things right now for you. But this first one, I didn't read it yesterday, but I want to read it today. It's only 2 lines long. But you got to bear in mind that I spend all day with a 5-year-old, so my new take on funny may not work for you. And I want so very badly to say to you, this is the funniest thing that's happened to me all year. My ex-husband used to say to me, don't tell people that. You set yourself up for disaster. So I want you to laugh, even if you don't think it's funny, so you don't prove him right. And this one has a very long title, but first of all, let me tell you, we do online kindergarten at my house. And if you have not heard online kindergarten, let me just tell you, those teachers ought to be making $1 million. So here's, I learned this thing, I taught 12th graders forever, right? Who knew? But when you're teaching a kid to read, you don't use your accent, what Adam was talking about the grammar, you don't do all that. You just focus on each word with the same weight and emphasis. So this is what happened. My introduction was longer than the poem. The title is Observation While Listening to Online Kindergarten, or Why Multiple Choice Questions Are Never a Good Idea. The teacher says the book title is What Animals Eat. My granddaughter rolls her eyes and answers, all animals eat. Thank you. I was hysterical. Okay, this one's a regular poem. You have to love the way words change meaning, color and streak like oil in water, depending on how you say them. Just a tinge of accent here, there, makes ordinary wonderful. The way the speaker read the ad, expressing the need for an aid, willing to do bits of dusting, dishwashing, nothing cumbersome like washing windows, only laundry or wiping out a sink. But instead of using his voice to emphasize the second word, he shifted ever so slightly to weight the first, elided the space. So light housekeeping became magically lighthouse keeping. Want to apply for the job with me? Maybe we can change a world as easily. Slip, slur, sing, our voices chanting something new and wonderful.
This is called Poem in Which I Spill a Vial of Urania's Tears. Urania was one of the muses, actually, and the muses, the daughters of memory. She's the muse associated with astronomy. As I look on, the beast wraps his venomous tentacles around the military academy's dormitory. Then it lets loose a terrible roar and begins to squeeze the concrete walls, cracking them the way it would crack a mollusk shell to get at the meat inside. Why must I be a spectator to this, I wonder? Wouldn't it be better to imagine a world where we all carry pitch pipes and chew with our mouths closed? A world where monorail rides are free and children speak in iambic pentameter? In such a world, there's a place for you and me. We could stroll barefoot through a nearby botanical garden, say the one behind the armory, and then I could ply you with my rude song and make my feelings clear, accompanied by this here 21-chord auto harp. It's an Oscar Schmidt, top of the line, in case you were wondering. Your feelings seem somewhat mixed, you tell me. I'm picking up lust, to be sure, but your affection seems suffused with ennui and self-doubt, marked by passive-aggressive behavior. I'm also sensing guilt, lots of super-ego issues. This here auto harp can handle it, I reply. It plays both major and minor chords, dominant sevenths too, in case we're feeling exotic, I wink. Then I notice the trees bristling with glass birds. Oh, this can't be good, I think. What now? Someone hands me a bar of pumice soap. The sky goes unconscious. Then for several minutes I am alone on an alluvial plain, pondering the word nascent. I chant it over and over, first in my mind, then under my breath. Soon I am emphasizing the S sound, like a hissing snake. Nascent. Nascent. I seem to be wearing some sort of itchy monk's cowl. Whose world is this, I ask myself. Gone are my 21-chord auto harp and my thoughts of you. Somewhere near the horizon, Urania weeps. I get down on my hands and knees and begin to crawl toward her. Not that I want to, but something compels me. That's how it is with goddesses, especially the ones who are part Titan and part Olympian. They don't give you much choice. I crawl and crawl. My hands and knees have taken on the color and texture of pomegranate. Why must she be so distant? She's just like her sisters. They all play hard to get. But maybe there's a good reason for that, I tell myself. When I reach her, I keep my head bowed and do not presume to look at her face or starry cape. She must sense my presence because the weeping stops. I feel the weight of her gaze upon me. It's the equivalent of a large sack of potatoes, or maybe a peck of balder. She sets the vial of tears beside me. Are these what you seek? She asks. Not that I know of, I say, then wonder if I've said the wrong thing. I mean, I'm honored, of course. Who wouldn't be? A goddess's tears. Wow. Most of my tears become stars, she says. The stars were the first abstract signs, but no one remembers that now. No kidding. I never thought of it that way, I reply. Then it occurs to me that maybe I was never meant to be a poet, never meant to be a skald, never meant to be a hierophant. Simultaneous to this revelation, I find myself back where I started, watching as the poor cadets arrive on the lawn and as the beast's venom does its work. When it lets go another roar and turns to face me, I cover my ears and close my eyes. The bellhop taps me on the shoulder. Will you be staying another night? He asks. I look him over and notice his face and neck are covered in oddly shaped welts, like some sort of hieroglyphs. I catch myself trying to read them and look away. It's hard to say, I tell him, but it's too late. I think he saw me because his smile goes brittle around the edges. Everything is hard to say, isn't it, sir? He replies.
Sorry about that. Well, obviously we're trying to pack a lot in a short time, so I just dug out some miscellaneous poems, and I guess the only thing I can say in introduction is what I really write about a lot is family, not just my family, but family. And I also write a lot about recovery. I'm a member of a 12-step program. I only tell you that because it's part of my work. So the first poem is out of 3. Sort of a parenting poem, letting your child go. It's called The Goalie. I watch her walking down the dirt path to the soccer field and know what she is telling herself. Don't miss the ball. I know because I have taught her myself how to worry. I have translated mother back to great-grandmother, their apology, their sorry. I have taught her to fail, and I have also taught her not to, or neither of us would be here today. She to take the risk, and me to remind us both the ball may look like it, but it's not the world. Neither is the playing field or the ruddy coach running up and down the battle-ready chalk lines yelling, go, 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 even when the ball isn't in play, trampling the spirit, turning it into a beating. We are nothing if we don't win the game. I remember thinking when she was born, here is tabula rasa, a perfect human, until I begin talking and acting out all the fear. Now look at her smiling mouth, her $100 sneakers, as she stands in the semicircle of death, both defense and offense, willing to play the game, to kick back to fall, to kick back to fall. She throws her whole body into the ball, heaving it to the right wing who shouts with joy. This is called Let Go of It, one of those little phrases that we hear a lot. Let go of it. When the wind came up that day, I was holding the jib. I was holding it tight, like Harriet said to, and it was something to be flying over the bright water, the wind with us, the shore becoming small, then green, then a dark line. It was my first time, and I was glad that it was easy. My job steady, the boat light as a toy, the water slipping by with a slipping sound. And then the wind changed, turning like a face in anger, darkly, and hurled itself at the side of us. Harriet said, let go of it, but I couldn't. I kept pulling the jib tighter while the mainsail she let go of clapped over my head, and the rope tying everything to everything dug deep into my hands. Disaster is, to me now, this perfect symbol. That boat keeling, Harriet leaning backward over starboard, arching her neck as far as it will go into the wind, the volume of the wind, the Atlantic spilling in, again her cry, let go of it, and myself when I couldn't, when it was more than terror, I already believed I was stronger, bigger than the wind, and could not see how not holding on would save us, how letting go is holding on. It's a little poem about my angel, and then I'll read a short poem. This is called The First Appearance of the Angel. I don't go around believing in angels, don't misunderstand me. But this one I felt at one point in my life I had something like one. The first appearance of the angel. Without my knowing it, things got easier. Little things like the pen by the phone stayed put. The electric can opener stopped jamming. Nothing too important, but it was good to get a bargain on a coat. Good that winter was milder this year. With angels, you expect miracles, but mine began by fluttering, rustling. She liked to upset my preconceived idea, my belief that things break down and disappear. And I was, from an angel's point of view, a serious girl. A woebegone portrait, mouth shut, hands folded. Things had broken down. Things had been abandoned. The angel rustled in the walls like a mouse to not frighten me. She darted like a housefly to not disturb me. And the wings said little things, small, small, moment, moment. The wings said repeatedly, thank you. I just enjoy reading this poem. I have no other excuse. It's a dog poem. For those of you who have dogs, and it's fairly short. I am the dog sitter, it's called. I am the dog sitter. I am the dog sitter and not the CEO. I make sure the soul eats, drinks, and stays. I don't call any meetings. I make no decisions. My phone is for friends. I call the dog soul because he doesn't pretend. He's always the same. He is now, not then, not tomorrow. He hasn't got a laptop, although sometimes he watches TV. He tries to figure out if the dogs on screen are real. I can tell you the fur of the dog is always warm. That's the second time I've said always. Dogs are. I am the sitter of dogs.
Okay, I'm starting this part with a poem about, on the theme of unwantedness, which is a big theme with me. And from a personal point of view, it's like something that goes way back to the womb, I think, of this feeling of unwantedness. But I think, like many other things in poetry, I think it was Galway Cannell said something about this, that the more deeper you get into the personal, the more you enter the universal. And so I like to think this maybe applies to other people besides myself. But this is called Unwanted, Dead or Alive. My photographs on unwanted posters tacked to telephone poles all over town. I've been on the FBI's 10 most unwanted list for 7+ decades of unrenown. No bounty hunting Steve McQueen, nor Richard Boone, nor pack of cool hound Luke's bloodhounds on my trail. No one to visit me in jail or to go my bail. So perhaps I'll slip away today while no one but the bored near to death NSA is watching. Tell me, if you know, what are the first symptoms at the onset of a case of being wanted? This one wasn't intended, but Will did his Insomnia poem, and he referred to this poem in it. This is called Insomnia. Now, I haven't read it in a long time, so excuse me, I'll try. Some raw night when slumber will not come to smooth the furrows of your worried brow, Pick up a pen and bend your mind hither. Surrender not to bland despair that pollutes the broadcast air 24/7. It's not that heaven waits in the realm of ink, but only that it's hard to think in this mind shaft, and a pen is a perfect tool for tunneling. Slip the inky tip between the lines to find a fissure you might widen with your wit, and with your persistence you might yet find a tit upon which you can suckle content the long night through. For though the realm of sleep is surely sweet, there are other savory treats will nourish a weary soul, and perhaps what you really wanted was to be awake. It's easy for me to say because, as Kim will tell you, I could get up in the middle of the night and have a cup of coffee and lie back down and fall asleep immediately. I just sleep, man. I just sleep. So, anyhow, this is a switchback home. If you know, we are blessed in this town to have incredible parks, and I wish they'd spend some money on them now because it's really important that we do things closer to home now as often as possible. We shouldn't be hopping in the car like my father did at every opportunity to drive somewhere. So, this is called Yesterday at Dusk. A lot of my poems are kind of like tongue twisters there. I write these really convoluted lines, so pray for me. Here we go. Yesterday at dusk, I snow booed slow motion, moonwalk stomped through 10 inches or so of coarse ground, hard going, crushed just broken snow, to the now white and closed sacred Hemlock Grove Cathedral. Stomped back to fitness station number 2, where I in snow pants sat on an ice-capped 18-inch 4x4 post provided for the stretching of hammies. Seated in the cloud refracted soft at sunlit snow glow, seeking the vaulted nave's wintry silence, I found instead a strum humming dull background roar of steel snowplow blades on asphalt and the 7-mile-high whine of jet airliners. Dropping down deeper still, I followed falling cascades of powder blown from heavy-hung branches down to a space the trees made below machine cacophony, where the plush snow hush was only now and then broken by the distant calling of a crow. This is a really short one. It's called Wind Song. It's just 4 lines. I asked the wind to sit still for her portrait. The wind told me to go fly a kite.
I want to thank everybody one more time for coming out tonight. And yes, it's been wonderful. Everybody here actually have faces in this room again, and to be able to share our work. We do plan on having more events like this in the near future. We want to do more poetry happenings, just because it's one of the few things we can do at this time. I can't find the poem I was going to read. So, oh, here it is. Okay. This one is called Vox Vocus, which is just the Latin word for voice. The air hoards voices, and so many sounds, distant sirens, the neighbors' children chattering along with starlings and chickadees, old men outside bodegas, gawking, gossiping. Underneath these, the paper-like crumpling of dry leaves, as though the air was writing everything down, compulsively taking notes. What did he say? Something about voices, something about birds. The air ought to ripple when we speak, the way a pond does when it rains. Water becomes sawtoothed, jagged. Just so the air is sharpened by a human voice. To think, there are deserts of silence, like the moon, that fishhook dangling from a tree. There, in craters that never once ricochet echoes off their stones, we would die. We couldn't bear it. There can be no more in human place. Imagine yourself without a voice, unable to say one word, unable to lean over to someone you love and whisper in her ear. Not here.
Here we are always talking, almost too much, until the sky seems like a jar of voices knocked over on the floor. I'm on my hands and knees trying to sort them, trying to trace one back to you. But why this noise? Why do we feel incomplete until someone hears us? Because part of each of us remains children and cannot live if we go unnoticed? That is our first act, the cry, the only thing we can do to call the ones who know us, come from the other room. Then who are we crying out for when we sing? Here I am. This voice is mine. No one else can use it. Yours sounds sure, confident. Our conversation continues. Our only fear, the thought we might be stifled, and our voices left wilting like cut flowers in the base of our mouths.
This one's called March 17th, day 29.
She's consistent.
Of all the old women who ruled our childhood, only one, I think, is left. Wait a minute, I was supposed to ask you something. Y'all know what a stoop is? I didn't grow up around here. Did you know what a stoop is? Okay. It's important for the poem. I'm going to start again. Of all the old women who ruled our childhood, only one, I think, is left. They are slipping away, one by one, in morphine comas or misremembered lives in hospital beds, slid into nursing homes, or withering and waiting in their own overheated, knick-knack-filled houses, daughters at their sides or home in bed waiting for the phone to ring. No more God voices singing out what's wrong and right, calling our names when the streetlights come on. No one left who remembers the recipe for mincemeat pie or who the old folks are in those black and white photographs in cardboard attic boxes. The ones who said no when we wanted yes are all dead. We'll need to be responsible now for our own no's and yeses. No houses down the block where you can stop to use a toilet. No ladies in dresses and hats at baptisms and funerals. No more old women to tuck into cars and drive to a Friday night fish fry or Monday night bingo at the VFW. No slew of moms on front porches late afternoons looking out for the neighborhood's kids. My mother, even though no friend of nature, scolded me once for pinching the pale green needled sprout from a spring hedgerow. How would I, she asked, like to have my fingers pulled off? A best friend's mom, dead now 12 whole hours, saw a wounded goose on Madison Avenue Bridge. She stopped her car, gathered the feathered thing inside, and drove it home. Oh, where are those mothers of yesteryear? And how will we, their daughters, replace them? Have we learned enough? Earned the right to sit on our own porch steps, directing the worlds we see before us? I think we must. Someone has to. All those women who kept our lives swept and ordered and safe and whole are dead now. We are the only ones left to carry on that so very, very crucial work of stoop sitting.
I'm going to read two very short ones. And I should put my mic on first. And I hope somebody will be able to tell me what this first one means. Just a strange little thing. It's a one-sentence poem. In my younger days, I probably could have done it in one breath. It's called Zzzt. The gypsies in the next room who spoke a language you didn't understand have loaded their caravan and departed for their homeland behind an obsidian mountain where it is always twilight and the Wi-Fi signal's lost and the tavern lights have always just come on, where the jukebox alternates between hits from the summer of '74 and the girl at the end of the bar with her hair tied back in a yellow scarf smiles as she watches another moth fly into the bug zapper, which for some reason is painted pink and has your name on it. You can tell me after the show. And this last one is another poem from Holding a Seance by Myself. This is called Dark. It is darker in this corner of the poem. I observe this darkness, and what I see fills me with questions. Does darkness bind together what the light holds separate? Or does it divide us from everything? Are we more or less ourselves in the dark? What would that mean? Is it true that sounds become clearer in the dark? Or is there a kind of darkness that smothers sound? Can it be so dark that the darkness can no longer be seen? Can it be so dark that all we see is the world we live in and nothing more?
Cannot live in central New York without writing something about the weather. Today is a perfect example. Perfect. So this is a poem called Our Weatherman. Our Weatherman. The wind was blowing so hard today, said Ray. The screen door went sailing over my head. The day before, a mass of Arctic air shaped like a blue cloud stuck on Canada was cheerfully pointed out to us by our weatherman. Our weatherman never actually stands in weather. The wind does not blow his hair isn't real, and so on. He expresses regret for bad weather, as if the universe was spoiling a picnic. He expresses the fear that we will dislike him if he doesn't give us a lot of sunshine. And I do dislike him. But not for that. Nevertheless, we are a captive audience, hoping for better days, not wanting to get cold or wet. Our weatherman announces the temperature, the precipitation, the wind chill factor, the condition of the roads. Basically, he tells us not to go out at all. If our weatherman made the same reports in 1956, Mom and Dad would probably have canceled the trip to the ocean. We would have no memories of the hurricane that summer, no snapshot of John and me in the wind, our smiles into the wind, our hair blowing back in the wind. Although Dad took the snapshots the next day, in that strange empty sunlight that comes after, they are still a portrait of the storm, of the newly washed world. They are of selves we no longer have, who do not always come prepared.
Okay. That's all folks time. Okay. I got a couple for you.
And we're all set. Done. too, Will writes really lovely love poems, I think. He has great poems to Colleen, and I think they're terrific. I write poems to Kim too, but after 44 years, they've taken on a sort of different timbre, I guess. This one's not to Kim, but is prompted by her. It's called "The Poet Ordered to Write a Poem Listens to Children Waiting for the Bus." And the story is that, well, you already probably gathered I'm kind of an apocalyptic guy, and so if I come to her in the morning and I start talking about, the amount of plastic that's in the ocean or some other such thing as that, she'll get irritated, and this one morning she just yelled at me, "Go write a poem." So I did this. The poet ordered to write a poem listens to children waiting for the bus. The children waiting for the yellow buses are loud today, caught as they are in the sway of energies they do not comprehend, nor are inclined to further investigate, locked up as they are in the world of headphones, smartphones, and homes, dominated by television chatter, where words careen from speakers and tongues to fall and shatter on the cold concrete, unimpeded in their descent by inquisitive ears, or by the soul's need to ponder their deeper resonance. Who in the electronic playpen in which they are confined will take the time to teach them the wonder of words, the way they tunnel like worms into the warm loam of the soul, titillating, conjugating, fornicating freely within the safe realm of imagination where insurgency and liberation are conceived? Who will grab them by their ears and let them hear the way words can pirouette upon the tongue, spin out from pursed lips, or whisper or explode, or whisper or explode, gentle or violent, in the barren air between the palate where they are formed and the hungry ears that receive them? The way the sonic syllables play one off one another to dance, prance, chant, enchant, rant, and pant in the endless erotic interplay of sound with meaning. What mercurial thief will help them release words from their current confinement to the vernacular flatland of information in the abstract wasteland of academic blather? For words, if given a choice, would rather frolic once again in the poetic cave wall painting world of connotation from which they came, abandoning the lame land of denotation, the simple game of point and name, so devoid of deeper knowing. Who will teach them that the tongue is the ultimate tool of love, the servant of the ear and eye, the seducer who, released from its corporate shackles, might lead you and me back to that myth-laden land where a dragon lies upon the mount of gold needed for our ransom? Thank you. I didn't do that justice. It's a tough one to read, but I'm out of practice with it. Anyhow, this is our last poem, and we chose it as the last poem because it refers back to our title, The Delicate Thing Which Lasts. And anyhow, here it is. This is called, it's another Switchbacks poem. A march through the Switchbacks. Each morning must, hang on just a second. I want to do a good job. I'd like to, at least. Pray for me. Thank you. Each morning I must walk off 1,000-year-old stiffness is always in my body and sometimes in my soul. It's so quiet here in paradise, I can hear the cold, clear water ripple riffing through the aquatic greenery into the black culvert mouth below. Ribbons of silver, red, pastel blue, and gold are tied to the mossy, white paint peeling, now cableless concrete fence posts, wrapping our negligence in pretty colored bows. The hemlocks here in pandemic heaven don't care that I've come to see them, don't give a petite cone or flat white stripe needle if I in protest cry or sing in jubilation. But I don't need their approbation to love this decaying sacred place with all my stunted heart and soul, so of its mossy, crumbling mansions I will sing. I crane up from my pad to see a hawk gliding by silently just above the canopy, lazy, soaring the thermals, asking me, "Did you come here to make noise or to listen?" The whippoorwill twilled his lovely tune, and the crow called to me, "Joe, you know, poetry's not going to save the world." I asked, "Senior Crow, what will?" Old Blackfeather fell silent too. If poetry is the delicate thing which lasts, then I'm that indelicate thing which Foghorn blasts. A box of my assorted indelicacies will be available for purchase after the show. Thank you.